Hello. Hey guys, welcome back to Crows Before Bros. I'm Randy.
I'm Lauren.
And we're here to talk about books.
Yeah.
Last month we did a reread for me of one of my favorite books that you had never read before, and that was Song of Achilles. So this month we're doing the reverse. One of your favorite books that's a reread for you. And is the first time I'm reading it, so.
Today we're talking about The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. It's 328 pages, and the plot, I guess I'll give you a brief synopsis. Susie Salmon, our main character, gets murdered in 1973 in Pennsylvania.
I think so. This is not a spoiler, by the way. This is like back of the book, chapter 1.
Chapter 1.
She gets murdered.
She gets murdered, and that's it. You see things from Susie's perspective. She's kind of in this sort of in-between heaven, not quite her final destination. You know, like final destination, like all along she's like the back of the truck. But she's not at quite her final destination yet, but she's kind of in this sort of purgatory way station gazebo slash the town square of Stars Hollow, Gilmore Girls era, watching her family kind of grieve over her. And that's pretty much all that happens.
That is the plot.
The whole book. She's kind of like seeing, you know, what becomes of her murderer, and she's kind of seeing what becomes of her high school crush
and her sister
and like how they are growing up. You know, she's perceiving and seeing her parents more as like people independent of just being like mom and dad. But it sure is sleepy.
It's not a plot-driven book for sure.
What would you say it's driven by?
Vibes?
Vibes alone.
Because I don't feel like it's terribly character driven either. It's more character driven than plot because we're like seeing these people grow. But we were talking a couple videos ago about these books that just are like the course of somebody's life, and that's like this book. It's not necessarily about the characters, and it's not necessarily about the plot, it's just about like life happening.
Yeah, and you might be thinking, Lauren, a video ago you said that you didn't like these types of books, and you'd be right. For context, I read this when I was like 13, 14 years old as an edgy little tween.
I was thinking about this book as I was reading it, and I was like, this is the kind of book that right around that age I would have been like, hell yeah. I'm so grown up.
I'm reading
books
dark
about
stuff.
Murder. I think even then, like, me liking the book would be more about me feeling grown up than about actually the book.
Very interesting that you say that.
I just wanted to come and film what I think Randy is going to think of The Lovely Bones before I go out this afternoon and film with her. I read this for the first time when I was like 13, 14 years old, and I think I was maybe like admittedly thinking that I wanted to be like a cool girl who read deep books. And so the fact that it was like dark subject material, kind of edgy, and kind of flowery writing, I was like, oh, this book is poetic. It's so beautiful. It even like references one of my other favorite books. And now I'm thinking, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to go back and read that one too to see if it holds up, because I have different opinions of it now than I did when I read it when I was younger. And I think Randy's first read through, if I had to guess, I would say she probably thought that it was just like a load of crap.
It made me laugh out loud when there is a mention in this book of the bell jar. And I was like, shit. I don't read Harry Potter. I read Sylvia Plath.
Real small indie author Sylvia Plath.
Have you heard about this cheeky little author? I was wanting for image more than substance of the actual book. We're gonna get deep here today. We're gonna get so deep. I faced a lot of, when I was younger, judgment for liking the things that I genuinely liked. That was like really hard for me to like say out loud to somebody that I like wanted to spend all of my time just like sitting at home playing The Sims after school, you know? So I felt like maybe this was a little bit of a book where I was like, ooh, I really like that I like this big serious book. And I like what that says about me as a person. But it's interesting how time and sort of just like, I don't want to say like growth necessarily and be like, I'm such a better person
but
now.
Like, there's a level of like maturity that comes into
being like, you know what, I don't actually care if people think any certain type of thing about the fact that I like still as an adult enjoy things like Neopets.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've just gotten to a point where I'm like, whatever.
Or you find people who support you in that.
Then I'm just like, I literally don't have time to perceive your opinion.
Yeah.
It's amazing how time changes things because yeah, my opinion of this book has changed a lot.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I suspect you had some like a pretty immediate bullshitometer reading this book. I think like you tend to read things maybe with a little bit more of a critical lens than I do. I would be more likely to suspend disbelief and be like, I'll get into the mood of this, even if the author isn't working that hard, and give it more grace than it maybe deserves.
Yeah. Or I'm like, you have to prove to me why I should buy into your idea.
Right.
Yeah.
I think a combination of being older, being your friend, being just like reading more in general has made me have a little bit more of those sort of like checks to be like, wait, what? I didn't tag anything in this book, but there were a couple of times where I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, excuse me?
What was it that I really thought was so fancy about it? I don't know. I think the first chapter
is really good.
It hits so good.
Yeah.
And then it runs out of steam like
really fast.
Pretty fast. There are still parts that I thought were gorgeous, admittedly. There's still parts of the book where I was like, oh, that still hits really good. Where she dies is like you're reading, holding your breath kind of thing. But there are lots of parts of the book where I'm like, okay, that's hugely unethical. I feel like a sense of noticing that there's a lot of really weird stuff happening and simultaneously nothing is happening.
Yeah. So there were a couple things I liked in this book. I really liked Lindsay's character. I really felt like as a reader, we're like genuinely watching her grow up. You don't have siblings.
No.
I have lots of siblings.
Yes.
Truly, like siblings are a part of who you are. I think if you took any of my siblings away, I would like be lost. I wouldn't know who I am without like that part of who I am. And so I really think that Lindsay's journey was like really beautifully written. There's almost no part of her journey that is like, what is happening here? I'm like, I get it. I see why she's making these decisions. She's like trying to be her own person and she's like clinging to any stability she can find. She like spends her kind of teenage years like raiding her dead sister's closet and like trying to kind of be her and not really be her. And I think we kind of see her settle into herself. I really, really liked her story. That was like the highlight of the book for me. I feel like a lot of other things I was like, what is happening?
I feel like there were a few things that didn't need to be in there. Like for instance, Grandma Lynn, us finding out that she's like really into way younger dudes.
Yeah.
I was like, why? Like how does this serve the plot at all? It doesn't make any sense. Or even something like Buckley's garden. It's like an idea that's introduced so sparsely. Yeah. When he gets to the point where he asks his dad if he can like use Susie's clothes to make whatever things for his tomato plants. Yeah. You don't learn enough about it to feel the impact.
Like, this is something he's passionate about.
Yeah, to feel the impact when the dad like declines using her clothes and then he just destroys his own garden. And I'm like, you told me about this 1 second ago. Like I don't care enough about it yet. Yeah. Some of the branches, because obviously you see all these different kind of branches of life that are happening and everybody's growing up and they're going to school, and like Ruth, who is barely a friend even to Susie, not even really a friend.
They've had like a couple of conversations.
Yeah, they've like
acquaintances.
They're acquaintances. They've crossed paths just a little bit.
Yeah.
She has this like weird soul tie to Susie.
Yeah, like really a hyper fixation on Susie.
For like not really any good reason. And then also Ray, who was like her high school crush. And I can understand how like that first crush and first kiss and whatever can feel like really, really important.
And especially if you've never had any other romantic connection. Because
I suppose
you like literally died. So that's 100% of your knowledge of romance is like one wee little smooch. I feel like with Ruth, I can almost justify her behavior because this happened when she was like also quite young. I wonder how much of it is her being like, I'm so edgy, I'm really invested in the dead girl.
Whoa, this is very meta. There's a lot of things that do serve the plot really well. Mr. Harvey, I think, is written as just a quintessential creep. Have you seen the movie?
No.
You generally think of people as just blobs.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily picture them as anything.
Yeah.
But like, especially if the book has a movie counterpart, I'm picturing all the people as the people. In fact, if I forget who any of them are, I'm Googling it to be like, who is who, so that I can like visualize adequately in my mind. and Stanley Tucci plays. He does this part very, very well.
Interesting.
Anytime that we saw scenes with him, I was invested, but I felt probably the least invested maybe in the Ray and Ruth thing.
I felt really
you
confused.
could replace him almost with anybody. Like he was just very like one-dimensional, very cardboard kind of character.
Yeah.
As was his mother.
Mom, yeah. I was like, why do we keep seeing parts of his mom?
She's not really important to the story at all.
I think the only thing that she does that like impacts the plot is when she tells the dad like, oh, I would kill that guy if I thought he killed my kid.
Which like doesn't end up coming to fruition anymore.
No, but she like spawns him to, you know, track out into the field and whatever.
I almost had the feeling, and you can tell me if you feel this way too, but I almost got the sense that Ray and his mom were just like a diversity hire.
Yeah.
A little bit. Oh, we're just gonna add this like Indian family into the plot.
And the mom who like walks around and is like
barefoot
yoga and meditation. I'm like, but those are the only things these characters do.
Yeah, like give them something more that makes me want to like root for these characters or have them like do anything. Yeah. Anything like that doesn't just make them feel like Sims. Yeah. Maybe that's another part of the reason why I really liked this book when I was younger is it's this outside perspective. It is very Sims. Like it's like looking down on these like characters they live.
She's like pulling ladders out of pools. She's like, screw you, Harvey.
Well, there was a couple scenes like that where I feel like she just like showed up and she was like, boo. Right?
Yeah, like she's like, the dad is a character that throughout I at least sympathized with. Yeah. Dad is
trying to solve the problem.
Kind of. Yeah, and then he's like, I'm gonna be sad about bottles.
That was so sad. I was like, why are you crushing all the memories you made together?
I can understand being like, I need to feel like I'm doing something cathartic to let go of these like now painful memories.
I don't know. I felt mostly I sympathized with the dad until there's that one scene where they're talking and dad suspects Mr. Harvey of being the murderer and he's talking with Lindsay. Lindsay's like, you need somebody to break into the house. And he like doesn't outright say, yes, I need somebody to break into the house, but he like implies it. And I know he's desperate father mode. However,
don't send your
only other daughter into a murderer's home. I was like, what the hell? Maybe I'm remembering this incorrectly, but I feel like that was something that in the movie, there is no communication with dad and Lindsay. Yeah. Or like, at least in my memory, there wasn't a connection. It was like Lindsay was also looking for those answers. Yeah. So she went and then dad was like, what the heck?
It's not like the dad was like, someone should do this. And then she's like, should I? And he's like, maybe. He just like backs out.
I was like, there's no way that he like kind of manipulated her. I should say there are things that I liked and things that I disliked about the book. But one other thing that I liked about it before we get into like the crazy scene at the end is that I really liked how Susie was getting to see and sort of empathize with her parents as individual people. We saw Lindsay and Buckley be like furious with mom for leaving. Yeah. And Susie kind of being like, I'm seeing my mom as this kind of like stranger to me who is like this whole person who didn't maybe even really want kids. Yeah. And like I kind of became like a little best friend to her. And then all of a sudden she's this family woman and has like lost her identity in it. And so like Susie is seeing her mom with like a lot of grace. Yeah. And she's seeing kind of everybody from the perspective of her halfway house. Her heaven halfway house. She's seeing everybody with this like lens of like grace for like why they acted in the way that they did or why they like took the actions that they did. I enjoyed that perspective because I go, you know, it makes like you want to look upon people with a little bit more grace. Not that some of these things are like really easy to forgive things like the infidelity between the mom and like Lana Fennerman, which is like so unethical. I can understand grieving mom leaning into that, especially if she's feeling like some kind of way she's like disconnected from her family, not feeling really like she's meant to be a mom, like she's like barely has an identity of her own. She like leans into this thing that feels like safety. And the detective on the case is like, hey baby. It's wild that he picks up what she's laying down there. Yeah. The rectification for it is that, oh, she's just super hot. Like they talk about how it's like, oh, she always turned the heads of all the neighbors. And it's like highly unethical that he is investigating this case. Yeah. And is like
porking the mom.
Literally porking the mom.
Some of the things I tagged as like was like intimacy scenes. It'll be like, I held his elbow. I ran my fingers through his pubic hair.
Not just that. Not just ran through.
Oh,
pulled
straight. Why did you do that?
Like, it's probably the most bizarre whiplash moment.
Yeah.
We see Susie watching her life. At some point in time, there's a shift where she goes, I can actually like be at the control panel a little bit of what's happening on Earth.
Yeah, of Ruth's body specifically. I think the book says something that like Ruth somehow wished it into existence.
Which is so weird.
Yeah, so
like really weird.
They Freaky Friday each other.
Which is super weird because like there's so many points in which the family who like objectively loved her very much and didn't want to lose her and knew her intimately. Yeah. We're like, we would do anything to have Susie back. Yeah. Do anything at all.
Nothing.
Crickets. And then Ruth, a practical stranger, is like, inhabit me.
So now Ruth is vibing up in the heavenly halfway house and people are like cheering for her, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, did something crazy that's never been done.
It's like those Facebook posts where it's like, and at the end, everyone on the plane stood up and clapped for me.
And you're
That's
like,
how it felt.
Didn't happen. Actually, I've clapped when a plane has landed.
That tracks. So now Susie is in Ruth's physical, corporeal form.
You can't even take it seriously, it's so weird. Ruth and Ray are hanging out, and then at that moment at the sinkhole, which like you expect something to happen at the sinkhole.
Yeah,
you
because
expect
that's
like
where Susie's body is.
Yeah, but you expect like maybe that to be unearthed or whatever, and they're like, you might think it's a safe, but it's just an oven.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Why are we here?
Why are we here? That's where Susie into Ruth's body, and then Ray is like, hey, how are you doing? Are you good? And she's
I'm
like,
Susie.
She's like, not only am I good, I am Susie. She goes, I've been watching you all from above. I know the map of this town like nothing else. Let's go to Hal's house. Sister's, boyfriend's, brother's house.
/ garage.
Auto shop. I know how to pick the locks because I've been watching it while I'm dead. Let's go over there. While they're going there, does he know that she's Susie? I think so, right? But then they get there and he's maybe in like some level of disbelief. Yeah. And she's like,
valid.
She's like, I want to have a shower, which I guess would be valid if you've been dead for 12 years and you haven't experienced the feeling of like having a shower. Yeah. She's like, I'm gonna have a shower. Come into the shower with me. And he was like, no, I'm not that kind of person. And she's like, but I'm Susie. And he's like, okay.
Oh, okay.
And then he's like undoing his belt and whatever, and he gets into the shower with her. And then that's when she's doing stuff with his pubic hair.
Yeah, I got really hung up
I have so many feelings about this one scene.
Yeah. Let's put aside that she doesn't get a body as like, I'm gonna connect with my family who I've been following for so long.
Yes.
Whatever. Let's suspend all that.
See her running, sprinting down the highway because she wants to meet up with her family. She's like, I don't have long, I don't have long, I don't have long.
Suspend that. You are using a different person's body for a sexual act.
Yeah, it's insane.
And the whole time
also
I'm like,
super unethical.
And Ruth is up there watching. And I was really confused about Ray and Ruth's relationship, or they're like just casually making out all the time.
It seems like Ruth might be a lesbian, right?
Yeah, but then she's like, oh, I think I have feelings, but then that never goes anywhere. They're just like friends, but then it's like super kosher that Susie uses Ruth's body to hook up with Ray.
And I would have expected that when Ruth got back, when they you know, what do they say in Freaky Friday? A jolt or whatever? When they a jolt, you would think that Ruth would feel violated in some way. To be like,
I felt violated on her behalf.
Yeah, right? The other thing too is I feel like maybe a lot of time has passed and there's something to be said about like wanting to reclaim that part of you.
Yeah.
But Susie's only, I don't know if there's a therapist in the halfway house in heaven.
But there should be.
Susie's only experience with intimacy was being raped and then murdered. So you would think there would be some hesitation on like being intimate with someone for the very
instead
first
of being
time
like,
again.
suddenly I have a body, I'm gonna go get laid.
I'm gonna use my 40 seconds on earth to get cucked right now. Like, it is just like,
It's very
It's
bizarre.
pretty bizarre.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't fully understand as a young girl reading it.
Yeah.
But I feel like as an adult, I was like, whoa! Like, I was like jarred.
I don't even want to say it feels like supernatural or magical realism. It feels like there's two separate places and she is like just narrating what's happening, and then suddenly it's like this supernatural force that like swaps them.
I think you almost could have got away with a little bit less of a whiplash feeling if the whole entire time it felt like the worlds were like
More intertwined.
right.
Yeah. Or like Susie had some control over some aspect of anything.
Yeah, all of a sudden she's just like, I am Ruth now.
Yeah,
She
come on,
has
baby.
This like one earthly weird experience,
Yeah.
and then she's like, I can tell that I'm disappearing, and now Ray's touching me and I can't feel him anymore, and I'm like, what?
Her soul is like Thanos dust.
It's like
into the oblivion.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
You have to really do some mental gymnastics to be like, why wouldn't you want to see your family?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you be like, my body is buried in the sinkhole right beside us?
There's so many things she could have done. She could have gone and tried to kill George.
Yeah.
She had like limited time.
Yeah.
But she could have tried to make communication with her family. I guess she did try to call.
I guess.
But she tried to call after the fact when she had already half disappeared.
Yeah.
Right? And then she was like, you know, you could tell on the other end of the phone, they were like, hello, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
It was like so funny to me that she was like, step 1, go have sex on Earth. And step 2, maybe as an afterthought, I will call my family.
Well, she goes, she has sex, she takes a nap, and then she wakes up and she calls her family. I have no sympathy.
It's a pretty weird story.
Yeah.
I don't know. At one point in time, I really thought that it was like super beautifully written. And then sometimes I feel like some of the sentences are almost Mad Libs. Like she threw together just like
words.
like
Her eyes were pulsing.
like ferocious olives. I think maybe as a young person, I might have read it and just like not understood it.
Yeah.
And been like, wow, that's so deep. Now I don't know. I think I have a little bit more of a brain.
There's a level of like, I understand also that this is like a young adult book. So I'm not necessarily looking for the most insanely poetic, lyrical writing necessarily. But I want it to make sense.
A different thought. But I also feel really weird about the fact that like mom left and works at a winery for like 6 years or something. And then comes back and is like, I'm back. I guess this is fine.
Yeah. I guess this is fine.
Maybe this is fine.
Well,
and it's like
she's
there's
like
this
there.
weird feeling like she loves her husband but hates her children? Question mark? Like it seems like she doesn't like being
Well, I think part of
stuck
it is like,
in a domestic mother role. I don't know.
part of it I think specifically is linked to Buckley, because it sounded like she was gonna go back to school or whatever after the girls were old enough, and then she like had Buckley like 8 years later or something, and it like screwed everything up. So I think there's a level of like feeling trapped by this. I thought it was weird that she just like walks in and like literally her mental train of thought is like, I walk in and I know I'm not gonna leave, like this is it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you expect some level of like catharsis or like excitement over seeing her family, but she's just like, this is what it is, I guess. And it's strange.
It is strange, especially after so much time has passed.
Yeah.
The fact that the dad is like, oh, I had to have a heart attack to get you back here.
It's like, it's been 6 years.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
You feel deeply sorry for the dad because you go, at no point in time did he have the feeling like, hey, I need to figure out a way to just be like strong on my own.
Yeah. The whole time he's like, I'm more in
deserve-
love with my wife as time goes on.
There are people who are just like absolutely smitten with that one person.
Yeah.
Even if that person treats them like trash, really.
The mom kind of sucked.
Not a great character.
Yeah.
I think Alice Sebold's writing her to try to make you feel conflicted, you know, in the way that Susie is seeing her for like a stranger that like missed these opportunities and whatever else. You want there to be at least enough actions that like justify.
Yeah. But instead the mom the whole time
awful.
is like,
Literally.
I don't really like my kids.
On notes of just crazy scenes in the book, there is a scene in which Buckley is obviously quite a bit younger than the other.
Yeah, he's like
the sister.
like a
He's
small
like 4
child.
years old when Susie dies. And so there is at first many months that pass by where they're like lying to him.
Yeah.
And they go, hey, like Susie's away at a sleepover at Clarissa's house.
Yeah.
For many months. So they're lying to him, and then finally a day comes where they have to explain what has happened to Susie and why Susie won't be coming back.
Yeah.
And it is
weird.
Papa? Yes, son? When is sister coming home? Well, I think it's time we told you something. You know how we've been saying that Susie was at a sleepover for 3 months and then went to summer camp in the middle of Christmas time and joined the circus for a while.
Yes, Papa.
Well, there's something we've been meaning to tell you. It's like this board game. You know how every time we play, you're the quarantine specialist, my special little boy. And I'm always the dispatcher, and your sweet mother is always the medic.
Yes.
And your sister Lindsay's always this useless guy that no one wants to be. And Susie, every time, is the operations expert.
Oh, I miss her so.
I know, me too. It'd be like if in this game of pandemic, there wasn't any operations expert. He's dead, she's gone, she's buried, and you're never gonna see her again.
I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Yeah, so your overall thoughts on the book?
I think my overall thoughts on the book are that the good does not outweigh the weird. I think that was how I felt at the end of it, where I was like, I really liked Lindsay's story. And a lot of other stories in this I was very confused about.
Also on Lindsay's story.
Yeah.
Lindsay and Samuel go on a motorcycle ride and they find a house in the woods.
Yeah, that is
they're
weird.
like, we're gonna have this now.
Yeah.
In this economy, like you wish. They didn't have the forethought to be like, I'm sure this is owned by someone.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm gonna fix up this house. This house is mine now. I found it. I am Christopher Columbus.
Finders keepers, baby.
Okay, so your general thoughts, good, doesn't outweigh the weird.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like most of the book, I was like, this is pretty sleepy. Like I didn't feel very invested in a lot of it. I felt pretty.
That's what I thought you'd say. I'm prophetic.
Wow.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And I feel like I wouldn't put my stamp of approval behind this book the same way that I did when I was telling all my friends they gotta read it kind of thing when I was a kid.
What was your star rating?
I would give this 3 stars.
Okay.
Yeah. I think would be my star rating for it now. When I was younger, this was a 5-star read for sure, but I would give it 3 stars now. Only because I still think the first chapter hits real good.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm taking into account still that it did mean something more to me when I was younger.
There's like a level of nostalgia.
There is like a little bit of a level of nostalgia. And like there are some things about this book that I still think slap, but enough things that are weird or like wrong or like written so strange. How about you?
Mine, I think when I stopped censoring my story, I think I put it at 2.5. I think my story graph I bumped down to 2.25.
Oof, dude.
Yeah. Did you end up picking a song?
I did.
Hard as hell.
I did, but I have to say, I almost want you to go first. We might have picked it.
Did you pick If I Die Young?
No.
Because, that was
the
first song that came to my mind, and I was like, does any other song exist? I'm going to do a standard Swiftie pick.
No, I picked a Taylor Swift song too.
Is it Ronan?
No. Okay.
So I chose Ronan, which is a song about a young boy who died. It says, what if I'm standing in your closet trying to talk to you, and what if I kept the hand-me-downs you won't grow into? What if I really thought some miracle would see us through? What if the miracle was even getting one more moment with you?
Oh wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
That's good. I would venture to say that is even a little bit better than mine. But I picked Marjorie by Taylor Swift.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so, and if I didn't know better, I think you were talking to me now. If I didn't know better, I think you were still around. What died didn't stay dead. You're alive in my head.
And also in Ruth's body.
And also in Ruth's body, getting plowed in the shower. Now that we're at the end, what have you been doing? What are you reading? What's up?
I am currently reading through the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. I've read the first book before, but forgot everything that happens, including like the murderer. So I was like, great, I can just read it again. And it's a mystery to me again.
That's awesome.
Thanks, garbage dump brain. Beyond that, I'm doing housework, which is boring, and I'm playing Ace Attorney Chronicles.
So I, not too long ago, read The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks, and I finished up Red Rising as well.
Nice.
Very good so far. I'm very excited to read the remainder of the series. Currently, I'm reading Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England. So far, on track to be my favorite book ever. Exactly my type of humor and my type of, I mean, it's like so cheeky and fun.
Yeah.
I just love it. For video games, I'm in my Rocket League era again, so that's been fun. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Just like busy gal. Like,
comment,
subscribe.
eat a vegetable.
Haven't we eaten vegetables already?
Please eat more than one vegetable.
Don't get scurvy. I have a few pumpkins in my yard. Then I'll eat a vegetable. Is a pumpkin a vegetable?
Is a zucchini a vegetable?
I don't know. If I knew if a zucchini was a vegetable, I would be asking if a pumpkin
The
was a vegetable.
seeds are inside.
Like, comment, subscribe. Tell us if a pumpkin is a vegetable.
We're confused.
We're so confused.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye. Mwah.